I think every girl's dream is you earn a lot of money, you have a nice car, you have a nice house, you go out and you do what you want to do. Money is no object. It's all perfect in your head when you're young, isn't it? You don't think about anything going wrong. But it does, a lot. Lots of things go wrong.
Pewsey's quite quiet. You haven't got to go far to be out in a field or somewhere where it's peaceful and nice.
We've been at East Grafton for about 7 years. It's a nice little village, it's quiet, you know, natives are friendly. We suit village life, you know, I wouldn't move to a town for love nor money.
My children go up the woods and build dens. They like to do that and they come back and say we built a den up the woods and they're enjoying it. They go down the river swimming.
You've got the village green, which are the private houses, and then you've got our part of the village, which is the council area. You can tell the difference.
Every penny kind of is accounted for in this house, which sucks slightly, but you know, that's the way that we have to live, unfortunately.
You do sit and think, you know, I wish I could give the kids more, I wish we could do more, I wish, you know, but it's life and you've got to deal with it.
Like I say to the kids, although we're out of debt now and I'm not having to scrimp and scrape like we have, we still have to be careful with money. We still have to watch what we got and how we spend it. And they understand that. They know the value of money, and I made sure I know that they know the value of money.
It's not like I'm getting given all this money and I'm going out and I'm having a wicked time. You know, I'm out like every weekend and in lovely posh clothes and got a big fancy car and stuff like that. I've got nothing.
I was taken into care by social services when I was 7. My mum didn't have a very good choice of men, put it that way. We have nobody who can look after the children. We don't have anybody that we can run to if we need to borrow a tenner to go and get some milk or bread. We have to make do with what we've got and just struggle without any outside help.
My mum and my kids are inseparable. They love each other dearly. And she's a real help. I don't think I could. I dread to think what I'd be like, you know, as a person if I didn't have her to scream and shout at and help when I needed the help and things like that. It would be 10 times harder than what it already is. And sometimes you can't imagine it being any harder.
I've been a single parent for 6 years now. Yeah, it is hard. It's hard not having that other person when they come in from work to go, 5 minutes break from the kids, or to give you that extra help.
I was with Summer's dad for a little while and then it kind of went sour. We had a lot of domestic violence issues. And then with Mac's dad, he's seen him twice since he was born. He hasn't bothered. So predominantly it's just been just me on my own.
The kids, they understand, they know. If there's a child that's got 2 parents, both parents work, then they've obviously got more, you know, and they can provide more for their children.
I'm on antidepressants from the doctor as well. So, you know, everything seems to just hit you all at once. Something little will happen and just it feels like I've got everything on my shoulders.
I work at an MOD camp. I run a bar up there and I do 4 hours a night. I do it simply so I'm around for the children. I did have a full-time job beforehand, but I had to take a big drop when my wife left. I'm on a minimum wage and it doesn't go up, it's not going up this year. It's very rarely I get a pay rise. It's hard to make it all stretch, but we manage because we have to.
I was working full-time up until when I had my first daughter, and then she went to school and I went back to work, and then I fell pregnant with my son, which wasn't planned, wasn't amazing. And I knew that I couldn't possibly work and look after the both of them on my own, so I had to go down the benefit route, but that was my choice. It may not be liked by a lot of people, but either do that or I couldn't look after them, you know, they'd have to be taken away, because obviously I couldn't do it all.
I would like to go back to work, I would like to go back just part-time, but I can't afford to go back to work. You know, with the government keeping on about trying to get everybody back to work and everything else, but it's not, there is nothing there to be made easy for us. Even though they stand and they say, you know, we're going to give you this grant to go back to work and we're going to help you with this much rent for you to go back to work. When all that stops, you're back to square one and you're living beyond your means because you can't afford to work when you've got to pay childcare or when you've got to, you know, pay full rent because you're working 2 hours over what you're supposed to be working. And that's awful in this day and age, in this society, to be able to sit here and say, I can't afford to go back to work. Life is easier on benefits. You know, it makes you feel horrible being on benefits. I don't like it and I don't like living on benefits, but I can't afford to go back to work.
I had 2 minor strokes. They automatically put you under a benefit, which is a joke really, because what the government says you need to live on, well, you know, how do you live on it? Do you know what I mean? I think I started off on something like £80 a week or something, you know, well, £80 a week. What's that?
They're saying single parents have to work 26 hours now. And I'm thinking, okay, so how do I work around that one? Trying to find something to make it up to 26 hours in the times that the kids are at school. I would find it harder if I had to, but I don't quite know why they're doing it or how it's working.
I had problems after giving birth to Luke. It's progressed into having bowel problems, and I've had 6 operations so far. If there was nothing wrong with me, I would be out working. For those that are genuinely ill or need help or something, it's not easy being like this. Not easy being at home every day, day in, day out.
I think it's changed me as a person. I can see people now that I haven't seen since school even. And I know we've all got responsibilities now, but they've said that I'm just a completely different person, not as outgoing and confident. When it was just Summer, taking Summer to school at like 9:15, well, you knew as soon as we dropped her off, you'd just go into work mode. I think I acted as a whole different person. Because I was me, I wasn't Mum, I was Michelle, I wasn't, you know, a child's mother. I could be who I wanted to be, I could talk about what I wanted to talk about, have an adult conversation. It
changes you in the sense that the people that are working feel they're working to keep you on benefits. On that bottom piece. I found it a real struggle in the sense, not just financially, but mentally. You know, it really was, it was the most horriblest thing that you can go through. In actual fact, if you like, in a sense, it was worse than going through the stroke. To get up in the morning and there's nothing to look forward to, you know, you sort of get up and you think, oh, I've got to go through this a day. Well, is it worth getting out of bed?
I've got to be pretty much on top of most things, and it is, you know, making sure that you do the bills first, you do your electric, you do that first, then you do the food, and then whatever's left over, that's what you've got to play with.
At the end of the week, after I've paid all the household utility bills, on a Friday afternoon, once everything's paid, I get £14 in my purse to last me till the following Friday. That's it. £14 play money, as I like to call it. That's it. So if I know I'm going out one weekend, I'll have to save part of that £14 from weeks before, months before, whatever. You couldn't just go out, you can't just go out on £14. You've got to really think about, like, plan ahead if you're going out with or without the kids.
We budget for everything, which means sometimes I'm sat there on a Sunday night writing everything down on the back of an envelope about, well, what's got to be paid out, how much money I've got left over, what we can afford to do, if we can afford to put any money towards paying for the fridge freezer.
The electric is the big, you know, that real stings me. We get between £60 and £80 a week on electric, and it's not even cold. It's a case of, will you put a jumper on? Because I can't afford to turn the heating up. Then there's the water, then there's TV licence, food, whatever the kids need. Summer's got a trip next week, is paying for the trip. There always seems to be something. There never seems to be anything spare.
The main expense in our household is food. Obviously with 6 of us, there's a lot of food that we have to buy.
Lucy's got severe learning disabilities, epilepsy, big behavioural issues, which has a massive impact on the family as a whole. I'm lucky in the respect, I suppose, that I have a car through her disability allowance. I do get extra benefits for Lucy being disabled, but it's not like you notice it, really, because it's all weighed up with Lucy's still in nappies. So, you know, wet wipes and things like that, you're going through double the amount of day-to-day living. She is more expensive to have.
There is a lot of stigma attached to people with benefits, and I do find that a lot of people can be quite snobby about that, especially, and I hate to say this, but especially at the school. A lot of the mums, there are groups of mums that, you know, stick together.
You know, the women are there in their fancy clothes and their stiletto heels, and they're off to work for the day, and they're talking about all these nice holidays that they've gone on and things that they've done. And then there's me. You get looked down on.
I often find that at school, and I hate pickups.
It's almost like Summer's getting spot checked on the way either to school or the way from school. I just try not to give them any reason to say anything, because that's not as... When they start talking about your kids, it's not as easy to bite your tongue.
It does have an effect on your self-esteem, especially when you've got to go into shops and say to them, look, can we pay weekly? You've got to work out, well, I can afford to spend £5 on some meat. So you've got to sit there and watch the butcher weigh everything up to how much it costs. You can't go in and ask for 6 bits of meat. You may only get 5 bits of meat, and then you end up having to make a stew or something with it so that it goes around the family. So yeah, it is a bit degrading, especially when they work out that you're on benefits as well.
I'm going a minute. Shush, Levi.
In the past, my children have been bullied at school, and it's always bullying. It's to do with, oh, you haven't got these really expensive trainers and things like that, you know. And they're like, well, I've got trainers, there's nothing wrong with them. And then they start thinking, oh, you're an old scabby and things like that. You know, I have seen it being said, and I've actually heard it myself. So I know they do it. And I mean, children can be horrible people sometimes with the things they say.
The older children don't like to go for the free school meals because I think they feel embarrassed the fact that they get them, because obviously everybody knows, because they tick your name on the sheet of paper and people behind you can actually see them doing that.
I find that it would be so much easier if people didn't know who was entitled to free this or free that. I don't know whether Luke feels, you know, kind of embarrassed by it, but I know sometimes that I do.
Apparently because I get working tax credits, I'm not entitled to free school dinners. They're always asking me if they can have dinners at school, and I'm saying, well, I can't really afford it. So they'll have to sort of stick to their packed lunches for now. They look at it like, well, they've just had steak and kidney pie and mashed potatoes and peas, and then they have jam roly-poly with custard, and they get, I suppose it sort of ticks over in their mind a bit. Because they're eating their sandwiches and they're looking at that thinking, I think every child should have a hot meal, especially on a cold day.
I hate not being able to provide for Luke. There are going to be things that he can't do and he can't go on, and things that cost money that I haven't got the funds for. He's got to realise that we can't just, you know, buy him a new pair of shoes every 3 weeks because he's ripped them to hell. But he is only 6, and, you know, I don't really want to be telling him all of mummy's and daddy's problems and money worries and things like that. I don't really want to totally throw that at him because he would never understand. Not yet anyway.
With Summer, she's at the stage where she's actually asking for things now. You can't palm her off on little bits. She wants something. She's already started making her Christmas list. She has her bad days where she'll cry and, you know, want to not understand why she can't have the same as everybody else.
I mean, my oldest one is the worst one. She's into the big gadgets now, but I do my best what I can do. I tend to look in cash converters actually and get it cheaper.
With Sarah, she's going on to do hair and beauty at college, and we have to try and find the money to pay for her uniform and all her equipment for college. We've also got to pay for their bus fares as well. So in August, September, we've got to try and find about £500 to pay out, which is not really, it's not possible. We just can't find that type of money. So it would be holding the older ones back more with their future careers.
Living in such a small village, there's nothing here. You have to either rely on somebody else for transport or not leave the village. Because there's just nothing here at all. Nothing. A really expensive supermarket and one post office, a bank. Lots of little shops that you couldn't really go into, not for everyday things.
There is actually nothing for my children to do in our area. We've got a church in a village hall and that's it.
And what they do have here is too expensive. Especially for family on a low income, when you've got things going on up at the sports centre, the cost is just astronomical. You just can't afford it, especially when you've got more than one child. But there's no other variety, there's nothing else going on for the kids. And, you know, they've just had a spate of vandalism and things like that going on.
They've been set afire to things. I think they're bored. There's nothing for them to do. If they're out on the streets in big groups of people, the police come on, move them on. Other people get quite intimidated.
The Shack, which is the youth group, they've done a few sort of trips out, but the activities to keep the kids wanting to go, they don't seem to run them enough. So it would be nice to see sort of once or twice a month them having trips like the ice skating and the cinema trips and things like that, because the kids really enjoyed that.
You sort of feel bad in a sense as a parent because there's nothing there. We have got a lot more new people moving in who's got young children. They do need parks and that sort of thing.
Some of the children in Luke's school go swimming and they go to beavers and they do kickabout or go to football on a Saturday for the football team. You know, and I said to him, I can't do everything. You're going to have to choose one.
I don't go out very often. Maybe once every 4 months or something, I'll go out and actually enjoy myself and let my hair down, if I've got any.
Hello, ladies.
Hello.
I would like to go out more in the evenings, maybe going out for a meal with my husband now and again, but it is the cost of a meal isn't cheap to go out for, and it is also with transport as well, with getting home. For a taxi to get back to us from the local village would be about £15. I think in villages people are more friendly than in towns, but a lot of people work, and obviously because I don't work, I don't really socialise during the day, and obviously I can't socialise at night because I can't get out. It makes you feel in a way lonely, I suppose, because you haven't always got somebody that you can just go and have a chat with.
Being cooped up in the village drives us a bit nutty. Negotiating bus timetables, train timetables, anything like that makes it a hassle sometimes, and you just think, why do I put myself through this? It's just easier to stay here.
Monday to Friday the transport links are good, but it's at weekends and bank holidays. On a Sunday we have no buses at all through our village. Our local shop is 2 miles away, so we have to try and make sure that we've got enough shopping to get us through them days that we can't get out.
The fares are expensive. That is extortionate. And even now when my son wants to go shopping with his friends, just for him to go to Swindon and back, he's looking at nearly £5, which to me I just think is so expensive, especially for their age group. It's just ridiculous.
I have 7 children. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 grandchildren, smashing little kids. As a big family, it's always expensive, The days of you going out for a day, and it would cost you a tenner to go out for the day and everyone have a good time, have gone out the window.
The last time we went on holiday was in 2008. We went to Hastings.
Last year it was Weymouth, but it was quite nice. Getting you out of the house, different. It rained all week, so it was no different to being at home, but we weren't at home.
Life would be a lot nicer sometimes if we could just get away from the problems that we have every day, kind of thing, just for a while.
I'd like to go somewhere hot and sunny and make it feel like you've gone on holiday. And when you come home, it looks like you've been on holiday instead of probably coming back whiter than what I went. But sometimes you ain't got no choice.
I love the community spirit here. It is fantastic. It is a very close-knit community. When we found out that Lucy was poorly, the support from everyone was amazing, absolutely fantastic. To me, it's a very sort of safe environment, especially not just for myself, but for my kids as well. And, that's what I'm always telling my son. He can't do anything in the village without me finding out, because everybody knows everybody.
I can let my children out to play in the street, and everybody in that village keeps an eye out for each other's children.
I know that we're trying to bring all the community together for various events that Peasy runs and stuff, but it's still very much run by people with money and have a lot of influence over the village and what they do and the shops that we have.
Nobody mixes from that side to this, unless obviously parents from school and things like that, then we'll see them down at the school, but you can definitely tell that it's like a them and us. They don't venture over here and we don't venture over there, really.
In the village hall they do meals, but they're quite expensive, so they are more for the upper class rather than us lower class. We have a newsletter that comes around every month that tells us what's going on in the community, any events that are happening, and you can go along to some of the meetings and stuff, but I don't know whether I'd want to go along to the meetings because I don't think I would know anyone there.
Myself and my friend have been to some of the carnival committees and had input and different things, and it is very, you know, very welcoming. Anybody can go and sort of sit and listen or put in a point of view, and yeah, it's good.
You can't do a food shop in the co-op. It's a ridiculous amount of money. It's so expensive in there. I popped down there for, you know, the essentials, bread and milk and stuff like that, but you couldn't do a food shop. Well, I couldn't do a food shop in there.
We always go out of town to go to our nearest supermarket, so then I've got to factor in petrol.
More often than not, I do either travel to Devizes or Swindon and go Tesco's, Asda or Tidworth.
What would make it easier in the village would be if we had maybe a shop. Or not even necessarily a shop, just like a, I don't know, what do you call it, a co-op type thing, run by the local church or something, where you could get local produce like bread, milk, eggs, just your everyday basics, maybe to do that at a weekend when many people can't get out.
The big problem that they have here in the old houses is they're just so cold. They come out not so long ago and painted the outside of the windows, so they looked nice, but that doesn't help us.
I'd have a bigger house. Have one more bedroom. That's what I'd like for my eldest daughter. But she's like 16 and she's in with the other two, and she needs her space. But there's few and far between of them around here.
It's horrendous to get a doctor's appointment in Pusey. You've got to know that you're going to be sick in advance. You can't get a doctor's appointment for love nor money.
Apart from Community 4, who have been a godsend really, being able to access other services from Pusey has been quite hard.
Sometimes it is that you're pushed from pillar to post because nobody seems to know where you're supposed to be. Even though we're all part of Wiltshire, you access different parts of it. I mean, a lot of Lucy's medical need comes from Swindon, yet she's at school in Salisbury. Social workers and things are based out at Devizes, and it's just so hard to know where you're supposed to access, and I don't think anybody knows, and that's frustrating and hard work.
Our parent support advisor, she's been very important, I think, to us. Me and her normally meet up once a week. We go for a coffee. If I have any forms that I need to fill in, she'll help me do all my form filling. She's there for me, not for Christian or for the school.
Having a disabled child is hard anyway, but most of the time you have to fight for everything for her. Lucy can't fight, I have to do it for her. You know, I am her voice, I am what she needs. We've got the parent carers group, we've got the Wiltshire support things, and we've got all of that, and it doesn't seem to be making any shred of difference at all, because it's all still a battle. And I think it's becoming harder because they're taking so many services away. And it's services that are needed, very, very much so. If I hadn't have had the early years support that I had when Lucy was young, I would have fallen to pieces.
Richard and I were together, and then I had Luke, and I had severe postnatal depression. He left me. I did have a loan, and I had store cards and all sorts of things, you know, and I owed money left, right and centre, and then the letters that I did have went in the bin and things, and I completely went about it the wrong way. It got so bad that I got taken to court and I nearly got evicted.
When myself and my husband separated, there was a lot of debt that had been run up, and it took me a long time to get out of. It was hard, it was difficult, and you dreaded every knock on the door, every phone call, every letter that came through. It was horrible, it was horrible.
especially when you've got people coming on your door and they're demanding £150 a month out of your income. And, you know, if you don't pay it, they come or they threaten to take your stuff, or they can't do it.
Sometimes you have to forfeit on paying back what you've owed so that you can put a meal on the table for your children. Sometimes you have a choice to make, and then you just get deeper into debt, and then that's more worry, and I think that does put a strain on relationships.
That point in my life was the lowest that I've really ever been. I used to cut myself and do various things and think about ways to commit suicide. Luke was screaming and screaming at 1 o'clock one morning in the morning, and I smacked him, and you know, I put my hand up, I smacked him and I hurt him, and I shut myself in the kitchen and I called Rich, and Rich was still living in Calne at this point, and I phoned him and I told him to come round, because if he didn't come round I was going to walk out in my pyjamas and that would be it. And it was really, really hard, but it was my wake-up call because I'd actually hurt Luke. Luckily I had a really nice lady doctor. She explained, you know, it's not that I'm losing my mind or anything like that. I was really appreciative of all the support she provided, and she got me in touch with like the children's centre and stuff to, you know, for somewhere to go, and she helped me get Luke into nursery, and so I could have time to myself and kind of regroup. No one, when they're feeling like that, is totally alone, but everybody needs a bit of help every now and then. And luckily, you know, I've managed to get my relationship with Rich back on track, and you know, we went on to then get married, and things are way better than they used to be.
You jumped into the pool?
Yeah, and I didn't use it.
How do I see myself in 10 years' time? Probably not much different from now, apart from some kids would have left home, hopefully. Money-wise, I think things are just going to go downhill. I don't think they're going to improve, especially when they bring in this one system and then they're on about changing the disability living allowance. I think we would actually be worse off.
I'd love to be back at work in 10 years' time. Well, before 10 years' time, I'd love to go to work. Altogether, I'd just like to be more comfortable in 10 years' time. But I can only hope.
Probably still sat here. I'd like to think that by then I'd be out working, claiming no benefits at all. In a dream life, no benefits, paying for everything myself, working for me to better myself, not surviving on £14 a week. A bit more than that would be nice, but who knows.